Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Coffee and Headlines, our daily get-together live here on Facebook every day, 10:30 in the morning, where we examine headlines from Puerto Vallarta, the state of Jalisco, and the rest of Mexico, along with your comments, your questions, your suggestions, and all kinds of information we can get our hands on to have a most amazing life here in Puerto Vallarta as a community of English-speaking locals. As always, it is a pleasure to get together with you. And if this is the first time you're getting together with us, feel free to let us know by writing the word new in your comment, and we'll give you a most awesome welcome, excuse me, to the cluster. It is always awesome to see who's checking in with us. And today we have all kinds of news. And of course, it's Monday, which means we have a music segment for Music Monday on this April 12th. So let us start by seeing who is joining us today. Claude says that yesterday's show was amazing. That is so nice to hear, considering the fact that most of it was improvised. I went to a dinner party the night before. I can now fess up and tell you what went on. I went to a dinner party the night before, and this dinner party was so engaging and wonderful in the company of good friends that all of a sudden it was 2:30 in the morning. And we were still chit-chatting, so I figured, I need to go home because I need to get up super early to prepare for Sunday Fun Day, and it was what it was. But I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Thank you so very much. Thomas Simon is in Mexico City. I hope you're having a good vacation over there. Let's see what else we have. Happy Music Monday from Conchas China, says Raymond. Thank you very much. John says summer around the corner. Yeah, it's getting warm. It's getting warm. Let's see what else we have. Deb says morning all from Marina. Thank you very much. I love the segue here. It is Music Monday, and I have to talk about the Symphony of Flavors I enjoyed yesterday at Cayo Blanco. This place is amazing and deserves all support we can give them. Indeed, I totally agree with you, Dave. Cayo Blanco is one of the restaurants that we featured in our map, Versalles for Foodies. It is owned by a dear friend of mine, Cesar. Chef Cesar has done some amazing seafood creations at his restaurant, and we are due to go back to Cayo Blanco because some of the great things that he offers is the most creative, delicious fish tacos you can imagine. So I thank you for that, Dave, and I chime in, and I absolutely agree. Cayo Blanco is definitely wonderful. Hello, Timpan. It's great to see you back. Paco's wearing his new Navy shirt and it makes you look so handsome. Thank you very much. I need to go back to that Optima store to get more shirts because they were not expensive. Logan, I'm glad you got much needed sleep. So did I. That's all I'm going to say. It's great to see you. Sandy says 23 days to PV. How exciting. I envy you in the best possible way. I've decided I'm not traveling until I get vaccinated, but to know that you have somewhere to go in a specific amount of time, I love those kinds of deadlines when you're getting ready to go somewhere. Um, and it is absolutely wonderful. Um, let's see. I think we're ready. I think. Thank you for recognizing the clean up along the river. That was a yes, yes, absolutely, Dale. And if you were involved, I am so very happy to do that. I was very happy to get um, photographs from Eric while it was happening. So we're always happy to promote good deeds like that. So, with that said, I think it is a good idea. Oh, and before we dive into the news, let me throw in a quick poll and ask you you could, if you had the money, if you had the time, um, and you wanted to go away, would you go on a cruise today? That is the question in the poll. If you were into going on cruises and if you had the time and the money and the resources, would you go on a poll today? I'm asking this because it's related to one of the news items that we are going to look into momentarily. So let us I'd rather dive into the news by pushing the magic button. And of course, we start with the latest numbers for COVID-19. We received updates from our governor. Governor Alfaro published the latest numbers on his Facebook page. These are the numbers for the week before Semana Santa. And I will stress that a number of times as we take a look at these numbers. But first, let us see what Governor Alfaro had to say. These are the COVID 19 indicators for Jalisco, even though there is a slight increase in active cases detected by Radar Jalisco. We barely see 0.3% in hospital occupation and ICU beds. I suppose that meant a 0.3% increase. We are in the lowest numbers of the pandemic, and the strategy keeps working. The fact that we were switched over to yellow in the national COVID map was only because of 1 point. We are doing good. We are the fourth state with the lowest number of active cases in the country, the seventh state with the lowest number of accumulated cases, and the 10th state with the lowest mortality rate. There have been already 704,695 vaccines doses applied here in the state of Jalisco. And tomorrow, we start another campaign with over 140,000 vaccines for 47 municipalities. But we continue to insist on the fact that not all of our health personnel has been vaccinated, along with the vaccines for teachers that have to be a priority for the national vaccination plan. On April 26th, we will present the route to return to school for students, and we need that each and every one of us continues doing what it is that we must do, which is to keep our face mask well on our face, to continue advancing for the betterment of our health, our economy, education, and the youngest ones in our population. The fact that we are doing okay should not be misunderstood as the fact that we can stop being careful. To the contrary, we cannot let our guard down. This is the moment to apply every single protocol and sanitary measure that is currently in place so that Jalisco can continue to move forward. So these were the words from our governor. And again, I insist these numbers that I'm going to look at, that I'm going to show you, have to do with the week before Semana Santa. So we can expect that the numbers will continue to increase ever so slightly. hopefully not too much. But let me show you the graphs that the governor had to share with us in his Facebook post. First, we take a look at the numbers for general occupation being at 10.7%, and the number of occupancy, of the percentage of occupancy in ICU beds is 17.4. These are very, very low numbers. This shows that they only increased by 0.3% for the week before Semana Santa. Here is a look at occupancy in public hospitals through time. We see how things got really ugly between January and February, and how the numbers continued to decrease during the month of March. And this is where we are right now. This would be the graph for active cases in the state of Jalisco through time. Again, we see our horrible peak between February and March, and this is where we are right now. And this is where we stand in comparison to other states in the country when it comes to confirmed cases. The largest number for confirmed cases comes from Baja California Sur, whereas we're all the way down here, 841.15 for each 100,000 inhabitants. And then we have the number of active cases, again, per 100,000 inhabitants. The highest number comes from Mexico City, and there we are, way under the median average for the whole country. And then, last but not least, this is the number of deaths from COVID to date for every 100,000 inhabitants. The highest number of deaths have taken place in Mexico City. And this is Jalisco down here, still under the country average number. So as you can see, things look good, but we must continue to wait to see exactly how things changed for the worse, hopefully not much, during the vacation period. And it is important, again, to remember that we continue to have to be extremely careful with our guidelines, safe distancing, wearing the mask, washing our hands, so forth and so on. Before I continue with the news, let me take a quick look at any comments you may have. We've seen that. Paul is arriving in 5 days. Congrats. I love it. Let's see. I see some comments about cruises, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. Let me then continue with the news as things get a little bit more relevant and we get closer to the business of the cruises. So we've looked at the numbers, we've looked at vacation period, we've had vaccines for seniors and so forth and so on. What is the next big challenge? Well, the next big challenge has to do with the over 800,000 residents in the state of Jalisco that are between the ages of 50 and 59 years of age. So when you look at the math, you consider that we need 2 shots per person. We will need over 1.5 million vaccines for the state to be able to complete the next vaccination cycle for the general population. And this new cycle is expected to begin during the month of May. You may want to keep this in mind in case you have travel plans. You don't want to be away from the city if your plan is to get vaccinated here, because obviously it's not like the government is giving us days and days of notice. You know, we usually just learned like 2 or 3 days prior to when the vaccination cycles are expected to begin. So I would not be planning any traveling or getting away from the city during the month of May, knowing that one could possibly miss the opportunity of getting the vaccination. And now let's talk about cruise ships. And what the news item says is that the cruise industry is desperate to resume their voyages. Meanwhile, in the United States Center for Disease Control, they're not greenlighting cruise ships departing from the United States just yet, which is ironic given the fact that most Americans could easily fly anywhere to board a cruise but they are unable to do so in their own country. I have read elsewhere that cruises making a stop in Mexican Caribbean destinations such as Cancun are already scheduled, and these are using a home port outside of the United States to be able to operate. Could one of Mexico's stops become a temporary home port for those cruise lines that cater to our Pacific Riviera? It is a possibility, but the bottom line, I thought as I was reading this article, is who would want to go on a cruise ship at this point in time? So I'm looking at your responses. Let me put them on the screen. And what I see is that 83% of you would not go on a cruise ship. And I can empathize with that. I wouldn't either. Only 17% of you would go on a cruise ship right now, which is fine. But it's interesting and sad to see that as much as industries are eager and desperate to restart their operations, whatever their line of work may be, it is important to keep in mind that, it doesn't matter if you're ready to open if people are not ready to cater to your business. So that is what it is. Let's see. Any news on the over 60s who missed their first shot? There's no news on that, John. Again, I don't foresee, and we've mentioned this before, that we will see any more campaigns for vaccination until the next month when the previous decade begins being vaccinated. I would imagine that at that point the government will say, well, you can get vaccinated if you are between 50 and 59, or if you are older. But again, I don't make that decision. That decision would have to be made by the government, and the government has not made any announcements to that effect. We do know, however, that because some policemen and some medical personnel was vaccinated with the Pfizer vaccine for the first time this last week, I would imagine at some point more Pfizer vaccines have to come back to our city to give those workers their second round. So that could be yet another opportunity for folks that are over 60. But again, we are all on a waiting pattern until the government makes any announcements to that effect. Let's see. I think this is a good time to. Are we ready for the news? Yes, I think we are ready for not the news, the weather. Let's go to the weather. I hoped you'd be pleased with this weather. That way I can take more pleasure in ruining it, says our carrot weather today. It is 25 degrees, feels like 27. Humidity is at 50%, and the Fahrenheit temperature is 77 degrees. We can expect a clear day today with a high temperature of 30, a low temperature 18. Tomorrow it'll be partly cloudy through the day with a high temperature of 30 and a low temperature of 19. And then on Wednesday, we'll have another clear day with a high temperature of 31, low temperature 19. Not bad at all. Let me get ready for the next segment that I want to share with you, which has to do with the fact that Semana Santa and Semana Pascua may be over, but tourists keep coming to Puerto Vallarta. In Puerto Vallarta being one of the preferred destinations in our state, along with Chapala and the pueblos mágicos that are in different parts of the state. Most tourists that are still coming to Puerto Vallarta come from Mexican cities such as Guanajuato, Puebla, and Aguascalientes, not to mention the Guadalajara metropolitan area. So even if the official vacation season is over, hotel occupancy continues to be very high, and I'm sure we continue to welcome a number of international tourists that have appreciated through time that even though the weather gets a little warmer, the value of planning a trip to Puerto Vallarta this time of the year during the summer season is increasingly attractive. Something caught my mind. This one from Dave Schwartz that said, "That is so sad. I have a trip planned Amsterdam and Paris in August and worried about having to cancel if Europe doesn't open more. Not going to Paris if I can't eat in the restaurants. The restaurant being the key operator here in this comment, because I spotted this interesting commentary from Huffington Post on what the future of restaurants will look like post pandemic. If going out to eat is important to you, the Huffington Post published this interesting piece in which we can anticipate some of the strategies that restaurant owners will probably put into place so that we can continue to enjoy the restaurant scene and they can continue, of course, to prosper as a large economic group that has been hit really hard through the pandemic. Let's see. Let's see. I think this is a good time. Los Muertos area looks like COVID doesn't exist. Unfortunately, you're right to a certain extent, Dave. I've seen a lot of disregard for for sanitary measures in the beach on the beach area, which is why I'm not going to the beach these days, and I'm staying away from that part of the city until I feel more comfortable. Let me get started with our music section because it is Monday Music and we have a little bit of things to talk about there. Let me put myself in music mode, which involves clicking here and then clicking here. And today we are going to focus our attention in Lascia. And Lascia is the short name, Lascia is the short name for a beautiful aria by George Frederick Handel. And the full name is Lascia pianga. And there's we can see the lyrics or the words to this beautiful aria. It has two verses. The first verse in English, the aria is in Italian, says, "Let me weep over my cruel fate and let me sigh for liberty." So this is not a happy song in any way. Let me weep over my cruel fate and let me sigh for liberty. These are clearly the words of an individual who is very sad, very unhappy. Sigh for liberty. We have a sense that this whoever is singing this is imprisoned, whether physically or emotionally or one way or another. And let's take a look at the second verse, which says, "May sorrow shatter these chains for my torments just out of pity." So clearly, this is a very, very, very somber song performed by someone who is very, very unhappy. Let me see if I can take a look at my comments. Give me 1 second. Let me do this so that I can take a look at my comments because I cannot take a look at my comments and I want to show you my comments. I don't know where they went. Well, I'm going to wing this then because I can do that. Let's see. Hold on. Okay, I'm just going to wing this because I don't need to see my comments. Or maybe I do, but I don't see them. They've disappeared. Anyhow, let me just continue. These words were written by Giacomo Rossini, who is another famous composer, for Handel to set these words to music. So what kind of music does Handel provide or compose for this music? Let's take a listen. We know that, of course, George Handel was a German composer that lived in England. He was born in 1685 and he died in 1759. And this is what it sounds like. Okay, so that is the music for the first verse. I just wanted to get you acquainted with this music. Now let's see what this sounds like when we put a voice singing the music. And then we are going to take a look at the structure of this song. Remember, this is a very sad, sad song. So we can expect the performance to be not happy at all. Take a look. So that is the melody of this beautiful aria. And if you were paying attention to some of the titles that appeared during it, of course, this was being performed by the wonderful Joyce Di Donato. And we also managed to get a glimpse as to the fact that this comes from an opera called Rinaldo, which Handel composed. It was his very first successful Italian opera performed in England. It is beautiful, beautiful music. And at this point, I would like to also educate the music with a little bit of its structure. In these types of operas, it is quite common, or in these types of arias, rather, it is quite common to see that the singer sings the first verse, and then there's a repetition of the first verse done by the orchestra or the accompaniment only. And then the singer sings the second verse, and then the singer repeats the first verse again. That is the format that is usually employed in arias of this time. It is certainly the format that was used in this particular aria when it was performed. Now, we are not going to concern ourselves with the opera itself, because getting concerned with the opera itself might put us all to sleep. But we are going to concern ourselves with a film, a movie that uses this aria in the most effective way. Before I reveal the name of the movie, I should tell you something else that is happening historically in Europe at this time as far as singers are concerned. 2 points. Number one, singers are becoming increasingly skilled in their ability to use their voice to perform glorious music. As a result of that, composers are increasingly challenged to compose music that is technically increasingly difficult. So it's one of those things in which the singers get better, the composers get better, each one pressuring the other to raise the bar. That's number one. Number two, it was typical of this period for male singers to sing female roles. How was this possible if male voices were lower? Well, men were castrated in their youth, in their teens, actually in their before their teens, I think. Men or young boys that would sing beautiful in church choirs would be selected, and they would have their testicles removed so that their voice would not change once they reached puberty. This had two ulterior effects. Number one, the male voice remains pure and beautiful, and number two, these men cannot have sex. They just don't function that way. And this was common. This was common practice until I think it was until the 19th century, and then it eventually stopped out of cruelty. Another parenthesis about this period of music, again going back to this business of singers getting better technically and composers getting better with their compositions. this also started giving singers an attitude. And this is where the phrase prima donna comes from. Prima donna, from the Italian meaning first lady, but also a phrase that increasingly is used as an adjective to denote a singer that is just so good that the singers want to have their way with the music. So, and yes, Joe, that is a career commitment. I totally caught your comment by this second. And yes, they made that kind of commitment for their lives. Or rather, them being children, their parents made the commitment for them, which is really sad. Um, so, how did these singers start having more attitude? Well, they started refusing singing opportunities or being choosy about what they chose to sing, and they started creating ornaments or improvisation on the music as it was written. We think of improvisation, we usually think about jazz. But earlier, I told you about how the music, the form of this aria is first it is sung, then the orchestra repeats the first verse, then the second verse, and then a repetition of the first verse at the end. Well, by the time the singer gets to the final repetition of that melody we just heard, they have added all this excessive, gorgeous, beautiful ornaments to their voice and trills and things like that. And this is the way in which a singer of this period would show their talent, their skill. Okay, enough of that. What we're going to do now is we're going to go back to this slide that I had prepared for you. And as I told you a second ago, we're not going to examine Rinaldo the opera. Instead, we are going to take a look at one scene from this beautiful film from the 90s called Farinelli Il Castrato, or Farinelli the Castrated One. If you have not watched this movie, you will want to watch it by the time we're done today. And if you have watched it, I want you to take a look at this particular scene again. We are going to unpack it. And in doing so, we are going to take a look at how effectively a film director, along with his film editor, cuts scenes and cuts from one take or one view to another to craft a dramatic moment in the film. This particular scene starts with a very slow pan in a concert hall from left to right. We can see in the background the other side of the theater with all the spectators looking at what's going on the stage. And the camera pans ever so slowly until it reaches this point. This is a point of view shot in which we can see a performer on the stage, blurred, and we can see a stick, a cane here, symbolizing that there is somebody important watching this performance in the film take place. We know that because the cane looks rather elegant and because of all this hair that from that wig that we can see on this side. We don't exactly know who that is just yet, of course, but we get to find out momentarily. But first, the film cuts to this take, this beautiful take in which we see the theater where this performance is taking place. We see that there's a lone singer on the stage looking at the audience. But we still don't see, the identity of the singer is not yet revealed. Then we cut to this scene. There is that cane again. Well, that is none other than George Friedrich Handel. And the singer on the stage is singing one of his arias. Obviously, he's singing Lascia. Lascia. And who is singing? Well, none other than Farinelli. But before we get the identity of Farinelli, whose real name was Carlo Broschi was his real name, we cut to this gentleman who looks rather sad. Who is this guy? Well, this is none other than Farinelli's brother, Riccardo. You see, both Carlo and Riccardo, the two Broschi brothers, Farinelli was just a stage name. The two Borowski brothers were brought up in a musical family. Their father was a musician, and when they went to music school, uh, Carlo became a very successful singer as a boy. Ricardo, who we see here on the screen, is became a composer. And in real life, they developed this symbiotic relationship in which Farinelli, his brother, um, would seduce women with his voice, but obviously, when women approached him and wanted to have a little fling with the singer, well, the singer could not perform. So in would come his brother, and once the women were seduced, it was the brother, the composer, who we see here on the screen, who would do the sexual deed. Well, he was good in bed, but he was not a good composer. And Farinelli increasingly wanted to get away from that dysfunctional codependence with his brother and was more interested in singing the music of great composers like George Friedrich Handel. So when we see the scene cut to this shot in which we see the brother looking sad and alone, it is because his brother, Ricardo, has clearly realized that his brother doesn't want to sing his music anymore. And then there's a flashback scene in which Ricardo is shown immersing the young Farinelli into a big tub where he is about to be castrated. And all of this is in the background while Farinelli is singing this mournful song with these lyrics about wanting to be set free. And finally, we see him singing. Finally, we see Farinelli singing about liberty. Give me liberty. And you see, he's in chains. He is enchained to the fact that he has had this codependent relationship with his brother. He is chained by the fact that he wants to continue to perform all this music. And he has this love-hate relationship with Handel because he wants to sing the works of the maestro. Handel knows that Farinelli has an attitude but can't deny the fact that he has this glorious voice. So as the song progresses, we can see Handel sitting on his balcony here. He starts squeezing around his neck. He is so touched by the emotional quality of Farinelli's singing that he's starting to breathe rapidly. He is very much anxious. And all of a sudden, behind Farinelli, there's this giant peacock, which we thought was painted on the background. But all of a sudden, the peacock starts spreading its wings. And all of a sudden, we get a glimpse as to how opera special effects were crafted in this period. I mean, today, opera and films rely on all kinds of special effects and animation and this and so other. So one of the beautiful things about this film is that we get a very accurate, close look as to how opera impresarios of the period created amazing special effects with whatever resources they had at this stage in history. By the time the peacock has opened its wings entirely, we get this grandiose look of all the theater. And from this moment on to the end of the scene, Handel continues to get increasingly uncomfortable, warm. His heart is beating rapidly as Farinelli is locking his eyes directly on the maestro. He's no longer singing to the entire audience. He has set his eyes on Handel. He's singing to him. He's pleading, write me more glorious music and I will honor your music. Even the conductor, all of a sudden, he should be concerned with his orchestra and with the singer, but the conductor cannot resist the urge to turn and see, what is Farinelli staring at? And the scene ends when Farinelli reaches the end of the aria, and the maestro, Handel, loses his wig literally as he passes out with the end. So what does the end of this aria sound like? Let me see if I can go back to the version with um, that we heard with Joyce DiDonato, which was right here. I want to play it again, and I think we can do that by doing this. No, not that one. Here we go. Actually, let me stop for a second. Before we listen to it, listen to how plain the version that Joyce DiDonato is going to sing. There is no ornamentation at all. But remember the melody as much as you can. Okay, now let me fast forward in the presentation to the end of the scene where Farinelli is singing this to Handel, and Handel loses his wig, is about to pass out, and in this section of the aria, we are listening to the final repeat. So notice in comparison how much ornamentation there is in Farinelli's version of the same music. Here we go. And that's how the scene ends. Again, this is a beautiful film from 1955 called Farinelli Il Castrato. I don't know if it is on Amazon Prime. I don't know if it is on Netflix right now, but it is definitely a gorgeous film to examine the music of George Friedrich Handel, to examine the stage craft that was in place during that period, a period in which, there were no special effects. And it is a great film to examine this dysfunctional relationship between the two brothers trying to break free from one another. And it is just a gorgeous film. And that's the end of Music Monday. Let me take a quick look at your comments just to see where we are at. Let's see. Shungada boom bam bam. Let's see. We read that before. What a gorgeous music hall. There's a great behind the scenes on the filming of the movie that is absolutely beautiful. Ouch is right. I'm sure that comment came up when we talked about castrati for the first time. Can't they just use falsetto instead of losing their balls? Well, this is what was done at the time. Could they have used falsetto? Eventually, men started developing falsetto, and we end up now with what is known as a countertenor. Countertenors are quite common today. They're male singers that choose to sing on their upper range, but it is known historically that the quality of the voice of a male countertenor or a male castrato is different. The male voice of the castrato is a lot purer and much more similar to that of a soprano. So there is a slight difference over there. Let's see. Beep-a-dee-pa-boom. Since it's Music Monday, am I allowed to post a video of myself singing at La Capella restaurant? The quality is awful. Well, you already posted it, Dean, so how can I say no to you? Um, there you go. Let's see. And no, I wouldn't say no to you. I wouldn't say no to you. Uh, that said, well, let's not go there. No, you already posted it. It's no big deal. We don't have any set guidelines for singers posting their videos. No big whoop. Sherry asks, I hope this isn't a dumb question, but isn't castrating him as a child abuse? Sherry, it is not a dumb question, not at all. If a child was castrated today, in this day and age, oh my God, it would be considered so much more than child abuse. It's not even funny. It would be considered cruelty. Just as today we think it cruel to go to a bullfight and watch a bull be put to death in a horrible, painful, useless way, whereas maybe some 40, 50 years ago, nobody seemed to care. We've changed. We changed through time. And yes, at the time, it was not considered to be abuse. In fact, it was considered to be a great privilege for a child to have such a beautiful voice that it would be preserved for decades. Let's see. Tidingadaboom bam bam. Oh, thank you for that clarification. And you're not being mamon at all. Yes, the lyrics were by Giacomo Rossi, not Giacchino Rossini. That was my bad. My bad. Let's see. Oh, I'm glad you guys liked it. Again, if you have not seen the film Farinelli, I strongly recommend it. It's a gorgeously filmed period piece. It won the Golden Globe Award that year as the best foreign film. It's a must. And if you have seen it and you want to watch it again, watch it again, but watch it again with all this additional context of understanding how beautiful things result when when a film director has a clear vision of what they want their film to communicate, and how put in the hands of a skilled film editor, the director and the editor, and of course the cinematographer, can create a story that is comprehensive, coherent, addictive, and just absolutely wonderful. So that is the end of Music Monday. That is the end of this broadcast. I hope you are starting the week in a good spirit, despite the fact that we listen to such sad music today. I will leave you with links to other versions of the aria so that you can listen to them at your leisure. And as always, I hope you have a great week. Tomorrow is Taco Tuesday. We already know which taqueria we're going to feature, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be any less special. And of course, we continue with the week moving forward, and we continue with our lives, always trying to find good things about our city that we can get excited about. So have a great day. Stay kind, connected, healthy, happy, and all that good stuff. And hopefully I'll see you again soon. Have a good one.